S-P-I-T or S?
Barron's,
Here?
Mr. Christensen,
Present.
Mr. Popa,
Here.
Mr. Walter.
Here.
You have a quorum.
We have an agenda in front of you. Any additions or changes you wish to make?
That's okay to me.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have an agenda. I see no public comment, so we'll move on to our action items. Beaver update.
We got to approve the minutes.
Approval of minutes, yes. I have not read them, to be honest.
Well, they were from a year ago.
What was that?
We sent them out last May. We just haven't met since then.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I have no word from Trapper Ron, late word. Oh. We haven't had a meeting since May? Well, I shared with you somewhere that he had dislocated his shoulder. This would have been the week before Christmas. He was going to give it a break until about now. I've sent him 2 text messages in the last week asking him for an update, and I haven't heard from him. I know the pond is still growing. The flooding's pretty serious. But I don't know whether our trapper's status is at the moment.
Do you have a contract with him? There's another trapper that asked me whether he wants us to go after the beaver. Yes.
Well, let me find out let me continue to make an effort to get hold of Ron then.
I guess, yeah, you could text a question to him, should we be trying to find more help with the beaver, or are you physically able?
Did he end up getting any of them to begin with?
1 beaver, 4 muskrat.
Yeah,
Okay.
it seemed like it was a really, really physical job.
Now-
Hauling stuff around and traps and beavers and whatnot. I dislocated my shoulder and I had to have surgery.
I second that.
Okay.
I can contact this person
Why don't you let Dave,
and
Why
give
don't
them
you
your
be-
name only, so hey, if you want to get a hold of them, I would,
that's good.
I'll find the name of the guy and give it to you. I won't talk to him.
Good, good.
But, because I forgot his name. But it doesn't mean you can't have 2, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know how trappers
Does
work.
it hurt your feelings if we go get
Well,
go in there and get the beaver? You know?
I think it's like hunting, I think. It'd be like the owner of the property that you hunt tells someone else, yeah, you can come hunt deer. John won't mind. And they set up a stand next to your stand
That's true.
and mess up the hunt. They're there with a radio and they're drinking beer and smoking cigars.
We're sitting in bad chairs that make a lot of noise.
Oh?
Well, I will continue to, I'll push him and get some response. So John, get me that name, dig it up and get that to me, and then I'll plow on
I
from
won't make
there.
promises, but I've
Okay.
been contacted.
Okay.
That was a couple months ago.
Now,
That'd be nice to know, because I got all this stuff to start tearing that out.
well, I wanted to move on to this. Do you have a plan? Well, first of all, a gentleman Al Zelinsky had contacted Melinda. She passed that contact on to me, and I've been in touch with him. Though he I wanted to know how he felt about volunteering before today's meeting, and I haven't heard back from him before today's meeting. But he got in there in waders and a pitchfork and worked on one of the dams. At least he said he did. He says he walks his dog every day at Veronica, and he's anxious to help and get rid of the beaver.
What's his name?
Al Zelinsky. I have his email. I do not have his phone number. I gave him mine and asked him to call me. I didn't do that till yesterday. I asked him to call me.
No, I noticed
soon.
it was all tore up. I thought it was a tractor. That's all.
Yeah. What is your plan with the tools you got? Tell us what you
I
got.
have a grappling hook and let's just throw over the dam and start tearing stuff out. So I wash down the river.
Tear it up, I mean, pull on it by hand.
Look at your body.
How about that lower dam that you and I saw? Can you get back in there?
I hope so.
Well, the way that thing's set up now with those tracks, it can go anywhere, right?
And now's the time before we get snow. Still going. Water. But I didn't want to go back there and disturb anything with rocks. Trap it.
Well, then I need to get hold of him, period. And I'll jump on that the minute we're done here. Because if now's the season, I mean, we don't have any big snow forecast for a while. So, do you need help?
Yes. Yeah. I'm sure Jerry and Dwayne would love to help too.
Well, we'll work on that. So, the machine you have, is that the groomer the tractor that pulls the groom? What, you'll take that up to the bridge and pull out that upper one?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe pull it from the other way.
Okay.
At 200-foot wall.
Okay.
Couple pulleys.
Well, then the conclusion of this is I gotta get hold of Ron and I'll find out his condition and if,
Should we have somebody else help, or can he do it? I guess that's the question. Can he physically do it?
and also then, do you, I mean, if he said, oh, I'm at it, well, okay, you got traps in there because we'd like to get in and tear those dams out in this weather spell.
Well, it might coincide pretty nicely, because once you tear something up, the beavers come to the tear up, and that might be what he wants too.
Okay.
You might be able to work together and he can get them.
I don't know what the northern dam's like, so. Last 3 months. Could be pretty big.
Yeah. Because it wasn't small when you and I saw it. Okay. That's all I got there. I know we got a problem, so we have to stay with it.
Yeah.
I have a question, Dave. Are muskrats a problem?
They dig a lot of tunnels right near the
Yeah,
pond.
you
That's
have to
what.
dig under the banks. Collapse.
Okay.
They're really not a problem.
They make a mess along the bank.
Okay, so I thought.
That's about it. They're looking for night crawlers and fish. Once in a while, they get in the road where you're going up to the dam or something, they make a burrow and have babies and then it caves in or something. But, no, not a big problem.
I noticed the water level in the dam, in the ponds, the front ponds are up, is up. I came by it today.
That was my question. Is the tube restricted or?
I think so, but I just think all the water levels up. Might maybe another beaver dam downstream past the park. That creek sets the level of everything in the park.
Including the fishing ponds?
So is that like, do you kind of ream it out once a year? Is that kind of the procedure on that overflow tube?
It's never been-
I thought it was once. Like,
They just dug a ditch out.
oh,
You know,
And some of it's shoving water in there, that's why a lot of that company was going.
a log got jammed in the pond end, so that got removed. Did that got removed?
Yeah.
6 years ago or something, yeah.
you and I wondered or talked out loud back then, before the log came out, about whether we'd have to have that professionally reamed out at any point. Would that drop the pond levels significantly? I mean, that's a good size.
I doubt it. Because, water's gonna find its own level.
Sure, but that's quite a drop from the pond to the creek bed.
Well, yeah, if that's an issue, maybe keep an eye on it, and maybe we can address it and have Roto-Rooter go ahead and do it if it needs to be done. I know there was one day, I forget when it was, this fall, mid-fall or so, I drove by and all of the fishing platforms
Oh,
were
yeah.
underwater.
Yeah, when we had a real heavy rain spell, and that all came up at that point, and then it dropped
Mm-hmm.
down below,
Yeah,
but it looked like it was back up pretty much flush with the,
yeah, we should keep an eye on it. I think that overflow pipe would probably do something if it's plugged. We can unplug it and try, I don't know.
but you're saying that's something we may well have to contract out for and spend the money
I
on?
would imagine Roto-Rooter, it's right up their alley. I mean, they just run a snake. I mean, it's, what is it, 200 feet from the ditch to the pond, or 150? Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, if they could just bring their truck and do it. It'd be a 15-minute thing for them or something.
Well, we'll watch that. as-
Yeah, let's just keep an eye on it.
Yeah, as
We can pull the trigger. if we
much
need
more
to.
springtime, when we get through that kind of melt off. All I have with tree enclosure update is this, that, I think it was last spring even, Tom Adams approached Scott and I about purchasing, it's a wire fencing, is it like hardware cloth? Go around the base of the 2 tree enclosures that we built because rabbits had chewed the plastic. We've apparently lost a lot of the trees in there, though the swamp white oak has done the opposite. In both enclosures, they're just exploding in vitality. They're doing really well. But Tom has wrapped the bottom, is it 2 foot width? He's wrapped the bottom in this hardware cloth all the way around to finally make those secure. Because there's more than just the swamp white oak that is surviving. Tom's already talking about, an additional, a purchase through the spring sale of some additional things to put, replacements to put inside those enclosures, especially now that we have that wire foot to the whole thing. Tom Adams, for the 2 of you that might not know, lives just up Maple Valley Road, above the park. He's probably put in more time walking the park than anybody else that I know. all of this work that he's done and the initiation of it, the recognition of what had to be done and getting it to happen. And we spent what on the wire? Because we bought the wire wrap.
Much.
800, wasn't it? We approved that last spring. Okay, okay. It was hundreds.
Most of it's still sitting there. He hasn't done it all.
Well, we owe him a big thank you somehow. He's done a lot for that park. And I don't know what, but the thought has occurred to me that Tom Adams deserves some recognition and thank you because he's initiated on his own recognition of work that can be done, needs to be done there. So I'll think on that. But the only update I have on that is that so you say he hasn't got them both wrapped? I thought he indicated to me on the phone that he'd gotten them both done.
Maybe,
Okay,
I just didn't know. I didn't think it was done.
yeah, well, this was some 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. Now, there's correspondence from Lake Leelanau. This is in your packet. It's a letter signed by Lonnie Rodemaker, whom we've worked with regarding Fishing Day. But I don't know if you've scanned that yet. In the letter, they're expressing their broad concern about adjacent waterways that might be sources of invasive species, water weeds. And they're offering their expertise to identify weeds in the pond and providing assistance to us in managing those. Here at the bottom of the letter, the last paragraph, he said, once assessment's done, there may be expense that we would have to incur for chemical treatment at the cost to be determined by the contracting company. So they're asking us to join in their battle to reduce and eliminate invasive species from the Lake Leelanau watershed. Now, well,
Don't we have an ongoing relationship with that company down state for pond weed management? And last year they came out, right? And what was their assessment?
we weren't showing a milfoil growth. This was early June. And that we really didn't need their service. We paid $500 this year
Are
for,
they aware that we utilize that company?
yeah, we did,
Okay.
for that assessment. I think we'd get more consistent assessment help from the Lake Leelanau Association. But Savin Lake Services would certainly be the private contractor for the possibility of the chemical treatment. However, Scott's got a license. We can dispense some kinds of weed management product ourselves. So it's in a granular form. We can do the kinds of controlled spot treating to keep the weeds down in certain areas and a large fishing area, but allow them to grow in other spaces. I think Lake Leelanau Association would like to see all of, this year we had more of an outbreak, I didn't think it was huge, but more of an outbreak of the, what they identify as curly leaf pondweed. We certainly had some before. But I think their interest from previous discussion and from this letter is to eliminate all of the invasive species. I don't know that there's any harm in our trying to work with them, especially to get assessment. John?
Laurel's right. The guy came out last year and they looked at it and it didn't look like it needed attention. Sometime after that, two of our Lake Association hotshots went up there and looked. I don't know if it was kids fishing day, but they noticed, hey, there is milfoil in here and there is this curly pondweed. And then I talked to him. I said, well, gosh, we looked at it this spring and it didn't look like there wasn't any. And he said, well, we think there is, and we'd be willing to work with the county, and we'll come up there, because these guys are pretty, we're spending a couple $100,000 a year, and they're really good at identifying stuff. And they'd be willing then, I think we should still use our guy, they'd be willing to set up an appointment and come in and do it and look and say, yeah, it looks like you've got some here, and that can be taken care of with a mat. You don't have to spray. And you've got some over here in this corner, and that might be able to be taken. All the stuff that's out there, you might have to spray. When to spray, I don't know, because can you remember when we did it? Did we do it like a month before Kids Fish Day?
No, approximately 10 days.
Okay,
The
so,
water temperature has to rise to a minimum level before the
if you
pond
want to
weeds-
put the
No,
2,4-D on it,
well, before the pond weeds begin to grow.
right?
So they've got to have enough period of that warm water for us to be able to see them and to make a good assessment.
So I think we should write them back a letter, says, yes, this is a good idea, and let's pick a date, the first part of June or something, to where you have that contractor and our Lake Association biologist or whatever, just meet there and do a patrol around there and come up with an assessment and do it after this temperature is a certain point. But I think we should answer that, say, yes, we'll be working with you and we'll contact with you and your biologist, and we want to do it and treat it prior to Kids Fish Day.
Yeah,
But I think we should use our same guy.
well, it says, I think what they're offering with the letter is they're offering their expertise to inspect and tell us what's there, and I think that's a home run.
Right.
They also say in the last paragraph that, once it's assessed, you might likely incur an expense for chemical treatment, the cost of which could be estimated by contacting a treatment company for a quote. So they're not wanting to get into doing it, they just want to offer their assistance to assess, and I think that's a no-brainer.
Correct.
I think one of the things that's possible is with their assessment, they may say, as John has already referenced, that some of their experience with mats has taught them it would work there. And they have the mats. And so there's a possibility of something other than chemical treatment too.
And I
Now-
think with that, and think with meeting them, we'll come up with a plan of attack. We bring it back to our Parks and Rec and say, hey, it looks like, I think we got budget money every year for spraying. We just didn't use it last year.
We used $500, we had budgeted we had approved expense of $2,500.
And I don't know what's in this year's budget, but it's probably about the same amount as a factor, just in case we need it. So I think we should just draft up a sweet little response and say, yes, we'll be in contact with you to,
I can work with Dave on the contents of the letter.
I was going to suggest that I'll respond to first draft to this content, get that to you, and then we'll go back and forth.
Yeah,
I think you're right, John, that we
they've
should
got
do-
the expertise on assessing.
Yeah.
I think let's go with that. We've got some expertise as to the company and timing of treatment with regard to Kids Fish Day, so that's in our wheelhouse. But let's let them do the assessment at the appropriate time according to their expertise.
Well, in fact, what I'm going to ask for, or suggest, however I word it, is an earlier assessment as we get into late April, first of
Well, you
May.
said something about temperature to
I
tree,
did.
but the assessment can come early?
Well, I think, I think this group will be willing to give us a couple of assessments if that's what it takes. I mean, but I'd like to get started before having Savin with them, first week of June or something like that. I'd like to walk some of it with.
Yeah, you're gonna need
with their
to chat
people.
with the experts and see what they have in mind.
Now, I feel bad about this. I had contact with Brian Price. I think it was after Kids Fish Day, by phone. In effect, he offered some of this kind of help. I sent him pictures. I took pictures of the weird growth that we had at the end of the short long pond, the small long pond. I never heard from him. And it kind of put an end to I reached out, sent the pictures, said, can you identify this? We've got several of these outbreaks. What is it, et cetera. And I never heard from him. And it disappointed me, but it also, I just never got back to him after that first effort. Well, once getting this letter from John, I went back to find what it was exactly I had sent to Brian Price, and I can't find any record that I did send it.
Well,
So maybe I never.
Brian is busier than heck last year.
That's right.
This
And
is
that's what I credited.
It's a multi-million-dollar program, but also, you don't have to put it in the minutes. He retired, and Ron now is the hot shot. So any any correspondence, do it through Ron Reminick. Yeah, I
Is
can
that
get you
his
his
name?
name. That's who you should probably mail the letter back to. Well, you need to mail it back to the Lake Association.
Yeah.
And they'll forward it to Ron Ramick.
Lonnie's got his John Henry at the bottom here, so I'll start it addressed to him.
Yeah,
But I've met Ron, and he certainly is.
he's good.
He's
And
experienced and very knowledgeable.
Brian trained them over these last couple of years.
Yeah.
They kind of worked side by side last
Yeah.
year, but that's the end of that. That's my recommendation. I don't think you need a motion to write a letter, but as corrective action, I think that's what we should.
Well, that'll be the action, is I'll do a first draft, get it to you, and then we'll knock heads about what's appropriate.
It's winter, so even if we get it ready for approval for the February meeting, it's not a big deal.
I may try to get this to you even next week, because I leave a week from tomorrow
What?
for a week. And then I have more surgical procedures on my eyes, immediately coming back from Washington, which pretty much ties me up the rest of the month after today, or after next week. So I'll get something.
So, do we know, I'm gonna shift gears.
Please.
Do we know that, what, Tom was thinking about, purchasing through the district sale for Veronica Valley?
That's the indication I got. on
He
the
has
phone-
something in mind?
On the phone conversation, yeah.
What are you talking
In the
about?
past, have we just said, go ahead and write up a purchase and we would do it? Is that how do we do it in the past? Do you remember?
I think we spent up around $100, at least once in the past, but yes, we just
Has
gave.
that just come through maintenance, or do we need a motion?
You know, since it's just a purchase, are you guys planting it, or is Tom planting the trees? Who's planting the trees?
Tom's been in charge of organizing the planting.
And it was-
The district's pitched
Tom and
in.
I once did most of the first enclosure, and then it was
volunteerism.
Well, our former forester, I'm embarrassed I lost her name,
Kama,
and she had her crew of volunteers for the second enclosure.
she's on Parks and Rec. So I have a hunch we're gonna be able to,
Cama's
her-
now on Parks and Rec.
yeah.
She got tasked.
Oh, far out.
And then Ellie is just a powerhouse, and she'll have a bunch of people. There will be no trouble getting people to plant those trees. I'm just wanting Tom to go ahead and order what he thinks we should get, is my thought. And do we need a motion to do that?
As long as it's not thousands of dollars, you should be able to,
We're just maintenance.
yeah,
We've just done it through maintenance, right?
just an invoice.
Okay, so I'll let Tom know to go ahead. Get what's needed, okay.
Laurel, do we know anything about 2%
And,
application?
if it's not this month, it'll be hopefully next month. They historically kind of are a little bit slow on their process of evaluation.
Okay. I still got my fingers crossed on that. Bill Watson likes the idea of us managing a beaver pond. He said, my crews will build walkways. And I said, no.
Is he gonna replace the 50-year-old trees that get eaten?
Yeah, well, that's what I responded to him was, there are lots of managed beaver ponds that are really fine. I mean, I've seen some of that, and there's the whole mechanical system of the overflow pipes so the pond can't get too big, et cetera, but that takes personnel, time, man hours. And we don't have the trees. We don't have the food supply. That beaver would eat Veronica out of every tree quickly.
And then the beavers
just
move on.
Then just move on and leave a mess. So that's not.
It's not in our
reasonable.
bailiwick. We need to be farther west for that to work.
Yeah,
Or farther north, maybe.
and more than 92 acres. We need 92 acres to feed the beaver. John, any additional thoughts of
I think we're right on track.
upcoming management issues?
We just need to move forward.
Chet?
Yeah, the big thing is this letter. Laurel and I'll take care of that.
Okay.
And I'll chase Ron the Trapper real hard and keep both Scott involved and John Pope, if you can get me the name of an alternative trapper, that may come in handy. And then Al Zielinski, if he's already put in time, if he, in his waiters, working on the dam, he might be willing to help. Somewhere I have another name from a young man who I met out there, who said he walks his dog there every day. He's a photographer in Suttons Bay. And he volunteered to be a volunteer. And when I brought up beaver dams, he said, oh, I'd jump in on that. So maybe I can get some other manpower. Yeah. I'm not gonna do anything to ruin the next 2.5 weeks, so I'm not tweaking my back, pulling on that crap. I remember it. Okay. I think we're all set on action items. I see no public comment. Further board member comment.
Out here.
I'm okay.
I'll go ahead and talk to Tom.
Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, guys.
Scott, have you been able to do any grooming?
Once.
Yeah, I mean, it was either a blizzard or no snow.